Welcome to Marriage Monday. We are excited to have you with us for this very special episode. We've been doing a series called It Still Takes a Village. And for this episode, we have special guest hosts, Chris and Zvica Ramos. They are in that phase of married life where they're raising young children. And we are beyond that stage of life ourselves, but we definitely remember it, and so do many of you. And so we're going to give some great advice to Chris and Zvica this evening, and we're all going to benefit from hearing what all you have to share with us.
So we got a little bit of a romantic thing going on because our kids are all grown up. And for those of you who have your kids all grown up, you're still here, going to be sharing some advice. Do you remember before we had kids, Lisa? Do you remember what life was like?
Yes.
And there's a picture of us right there. Look at you.
We were young, very young.
You look healthy and happy.
Energetic.
Not very stressed. I don't know what we were thinking with our fashion back then, but that was...
It was the 90s.
Those were the days. Those were the days. And then we went ahead and had kids, and in our next picture, well, that's a much different picture, isn't it?
Things changed a little bit.
Things changed. You look
dramatically,
great.
Actually.
You look great, but everybody else in the family doesn't look like they're having a good day.
Oh my goodness, but very special times.
That's right. So as I've already told you with our episode tonight, the whole reason and the whole thing that we're doing is it still takes a village. So we want to ask all of you who are live streaming with us right now to get ready to get involved in the chat. Chris and Zvica are going to be asking questions. Remember, these questions actually aren't about parenting, but they're questions about how to have a great marriage when you've got younger children. So, with all of the experience we have, with all of our live stream people who come to every episode, we want to give you that challenge to get ready, get your typing fingers ready, and especially get your best advice. But you know, we were talking about this earlier, maybe not always your best advice. Feel free to share some of your mistakes too, because, well, one, we know we've all done them, and two, we can all learn. So let's share together, and now let's go ahead and give love to Chris and Zvica, our guest hosts for this week. And remember, it still takes a village.
Hey, welcome to Marriage Mondays. I just want to thank you, Kevin and Lisa, for having us here. We're very excited for this episode of Marriage Monday that we are going to be doing today. And Z, I'm thinking we need to spice things up a little bit.
Okay.
I think we should rename this today, just for today, just to give it a little bit of spice. Lunes de matrimonio. That's right, Lunes de matrimonio. If that doesn't spice things up already, well then, I hope the rest of it does.
As Kevin and Lisa mentioned, this is my husband Chris, and my name is Zvica, and we've been married for 7 years now. Our daughter is 5 years old, and we have a son that's 3 years old, and we also have a fur baby, Diesel.
Yeah, and what's really cool also is that by the end of this year, I have some exciting news to share because we are actually expecting our third child. And so you heard it here first. This is where the news is broken. I want you to hear it. We're having a third child, and that is going to be exciting for our family. So who better to lead this session tonight than us who are in this together.
We're in the trenches.
Yeah, and so tonight our goal is actually going to be fairly simple. It's to engage all of you in the live chat. And so thank you for all the congratulations that we're seeing there. But we want to engage all of you faithful Marriage Monday viewers. And we have some questions. And what's cool is that these questions we didn't come up with. We actually asked a good amount of our friends actually to be able to, we reached out to them to see what questions they might have, because we want to learn from you today.
Yes.
We don't have all the answers, but we want to be able to learn from you in the chat. So we're going to guide our session today with questions, and I'm hoping that you can provide us with all the advice, answers, and experiences that you have.
And I'm so excited for tonight. I'm so excited to learn from those that have gone before us, but also excited to learn from those that are in it right now. Because I know a lot of you who are in it right now are trying to get advice from many different people. So if you've learned something along the way, or if you've gotten some advice, please share it in the chat with us when we do ask these questions. I know we are excited to learn from you, and I'm going to look back at the chat later on so I can take notes. We have a lot to learn. As you can see, we're in the trenches. We're going to be in the newborn stage again. But having 3 young kids, we think we can handle 2. We'll see if we can handle 3.
You know, the reality is we haven't really slept well over the last few days. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you parents who've gone through that know what that feeling is like. And so I want to be able to actually just go ahead and just segue, right? Let's just get into it. There's a quote from a book called Child-Proofing Your Marriage from Dr. Debbie Cherry. And she wrote in her book that one of the best things any of us can do for our children is to provide them with a strong marital model.
Yeah.
Children need to know that their parents love not only them, but each other. And the children's sense of security grows as he or she sees parents loving each other. And I want you in the chat to let us know, do you agree with this quote that I'm reading, this excerpt from the book from Dr. Debbie Cherry? Yeah, do you agree? I'm wondering, like, what are your thoughts? I see Cameron Fry, he's saying the most important rule, that's part of the most important rule. Completely agree. We're getting we're getting lots of agrees. Still getting some congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. We got sleep is overrated.
Yeah, I don't know. I like my sleep, but in any case, I know when I read this, right? It feels like when I read this the first time, and even reflecting on it now, it's really part of the advice that we've received over the years,
yeah.
Right? And really how important it is for us. And I think it's, I feel like I got pregnancy brain.
Well,
but that's you.
The quote continues, to put your marriage on hold for 18 or more years while you raise the children is not only detrimental to the marriage, but it's devastating to the children. I know an advice that we got early on, not even when we had kids yet, but even before we got married, was that it starts with us. You know, you get married and it's just you two, and then kids are added into the picture. And so when we have kids, our kids shouldn't be the center of our worlds, but that they should see that mom and dad, we're first in each other's lives, and they've come after. And thereafter, they'll see the example that we set before them, that mom and dad are a priority to each other. And hopefully that will be the example that they take, you know, later on down the road when they make that leap to find a significant other. And so, you know, later on, if we're not working on our marriage, even while we're raising kids, what happens later on when we're empty nesters and then we're left with wondering, okay, well, were we just parenting together or were we actually married and parenting together?
Yeah, from our experience in the last 5 years, you know, we've seen that the newborn phase brings radical changes, right? In our schedule, in our sleep patterns, in our intimacy, and we can kind of go on. But I want to be able to just ask us a question, right? Let's really dig deep. This is where I need your advice, because let's pretend Chris knows nothing, okay? Let's pretend Chris knows nothing. Even though I've been in it for about 5 years, I know nothing. I want to hear from you, okay? And the first question is this: what is the best way to go through this stage, the newborn phase, right? What is the best way to go through this stage? And I want you to give us your best tips, right? I want to see it on the chat, what your best tips are. You know, and while the answers are coming in, I want to be able to just share what one of these tips that I received when we first had our first child.
Yeah.
And That advice came from Kevin and Nadine Jokum. Kevin sat us down one day and he's like, you know what, Chris, I got some advice for you. Whenever Zvica is up, feeding the baby, changing the diaper, I want you to be able to do the same thing, right? And we laughed through the years. I hear Nadine probably laughing right now because she's wondering, well, what was this when KJ, no, I'm not gonna throw shade, but in any case, it's the advice that we got, and it's something that I actually held on to.
Yeah.
I tried my very best to hold on to it. Like maybe the second child was a little bit different, but the first child for sure, I was there. We were up together raising our first child.
Every night.
Yeah, and so some of the things that we're seeing on the chat is remember that you're a team, accept help from family. That's a big one. Give each other plenty of grace. I think that is a great one.
Sleep when you can. That one's hard. I feel like with your first child, you look at that baby when they're sleeping and you think, wow, is this real? And so, especially for a mom, you're either staring at the child or you're looking at your house going, I should be doing X, Y, and Z. I need to do the dishes, I need to do the laundry. But yes, that is something that I'm definitely going to wrap my head around during this pregnancy, this child. I'm going to sleep when I can.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to get some sleep where you can. But you know what? I actually want to dig a little bit deeper on this question because I think it's a really good question, but I have a follow-up for it, and it is, how can we treat each other properly when we're tired and stressed? You know, how can we treat each other properly when we are tired and stressed? And I want you guys to actually give us some practical things to do, right? Some practical things to do. I don't know, like what can be some examples here? Draw a bath for your wife.
Or your husband.
Or your husband, if you're into baths, all right?
Well, I know when I get tired and stressed, I get edgy and I can get snappy. And the first person I take it out on is usually my husband. I'm so sorry. And sometimes my kids. And when I get that way, I'm so grateful to Chris because what he does is he'll just say, okay, kids, let's go for a walk. Let's give mommy some time. And honestly, sometimes it's just 10 minutes. It's just, twice around the block. But that's enough for me to just reset myself, kind of breathe, take a moment to myself. And then when they come back, I can feel a little more calm and ready to take on the world. So some of the answers we're seeing is feed her. Good one. Love that, Mr. Fry. Feed her so she can feed the baby.
Laugh a lot.
Yes.
Laugh a lot. That can be it could be a stress reliever. Laughing is such a great stress reliever. It might get you a little bit more tired, which hopefully will lead you to sleep. But yeah, laughing a lot. That's something that I try to do with Z all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
And Kurt actually says something right there. Communication, being aware how you are feeling and telling your spouse what those are. And being mindful that we're not mind readers.
Uh-oh. You can't read my mind?
My husband thinks I can, and sometimes I think I can. But really, those times I always tell Chris, I can't read your mind. Please let me know what's happening.
True. Well, thank you. What do we have? Know your triggers.
Yes.
I think that's really good. Stop and have a hug together.
That's simple.
I think that's simple. That's a great practical
Yes.
thank you. Random neck massages. And Anthony will let Anthony will let Simone sleep. How about that? I think that's pretty cool. That's great. Thank you so much for your answers. We're gonna actually keep reflecting back on this because the good news is that even though we're going and navigating through these questions, we're also going to be keeping the chat live. So we can always go back. If something happens too quick and you're unable to take notes, we can go back, watch it on a later time, and know that the chat is going to be there. And so thank you so much for your answers on that.
Okay, well, what about this question? So you have the new stage, right, of the newborn. And a lot of times when you're tired and you're stressed, there's a lot of new things that you fight about. So what do most new parents fight about? Whether it's division of labor, spending money, maybe sex. We want to know what was your experience during that time so that, you know, we could be aware of that, especially those that are expecting right now. I know there's a lot who are expecting with their first child. Congratulations if you're expecting right now with your first. So please share with us what are some of the fights new parents fight about so that we can learn from you.
You got anything?
Yes. I know for us, it was an adjustment, especially an adjustment in our space. We were actually living in our good family friend's basement, Nadine and Franz Duval. We're so thankful for them. And it was a 1-bedroom basement. So you can see that if you have a newborn at that time in a 1-bedroom, it's pretty tight. Right? It's pretty tight. I know for Chris, we had a hatch. We had a small car, so our stroller took up most of the trunk space. And to him, he was like, "What is going on?" And we would have all these bags with us. And then a big one for us was that our dedicated shoe wall, okay, took up a wall in our bedroom, turned into basically where our daughter's clothes went. And so I don't even really remember where we put our shoes, but that doesn't really matter. That was problematic for my husband because
I love my shoes.
Yes.
Simply said. But we're getting some great answers here. You know, helping out with chores are some that we're getting, division of the chores, differences in parenting style we're also getting. Yeah, some parents might be pro-discipline, some might not be, right? And being able to navigate that.
I love what Nadine says, because I feel like this is a classic one. Who is more tired, and therefore who should get up to feed the baby next? I feel like the woman's always more tired, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, this is great. But you know what? I want to share just what I've done over the last year or so. And so it's been a part of the whole division of labor thing, but I now cook on the weekends.
Yay!
Yes, you heard that right. Husbands watching, I cook on the weekends. That means I actually know how to cook more than just scrambled eggs and 3-minute noodles. But I do that in order to help Z out, because I know that she is taking care of the children all week long, and I just want to do my part, because I know cooking is one thing, but then there's the added, hey, Chris, can you also do the dishes? And I'm like, whoa. So, you know, I've come up with a little plan, you know, don't do the dishes, and then once Monday rolls around, Z does it, but then, you know, usually Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Z doesn't do the dishes, and then hopefully leaves them up to me.
And here's the clincher. We have a dishwasher, okay? And so really we should just be loading the dishwasher. But when you have 2 kids and you're pregnant, I mean, I'm not making excuses, but
That was a luxury I didn't have growing up, so I don't even know how to turn on the dishwasher, so it's non-existent to me. But thank you all for your answers. I think that this was great. I want to go ahead and just jump on into the next question. Do you argue or fight in front of your kids?
yes, let us know in the chat. Simple yes or no.
Yes or no? Do you argue or fight in front of your kids? You know, do we?
No.
No, we don't. We tried to keep things behind closed doors as much as possible, but we see a few yeses coming in. No, never on purpose. I think that that's a great question, answer there. Sometimes, no, yes.
Please don't.
Please don't fight or argue in front of your children. You know, we're definitely getting some mixed responses, you know, and that's just the reality, right? Like, each family is gonna have a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we'll have different ways to be able to deal or resolve our disagreements in. Like,
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with how you grew up, you know, your experiences from your parents. It could also just be culturally speaking. Some cultures fight a lot, others, you know, it's behind closed doors. You will never know that they had an argument. So I think a lot of factors play into this.
yeah, for sure. You know what? I see something here. We disagree in front of them, but argue amongst ourselves.
So there's distinguishing between those two. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. You know, because I mean, we can disagree on a lot of things, and we do.
And we do. Yeah.
And we do.
Yeah.
But the fact that our kids don't necessarily really get to see us get elevated
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
to a specific point, it's helpful for us to know that we're going to take care of this at a later time when our children are not necessarily watching or hearing us. And that's already very difficult as being, you know, Dominican. We try to get loud over everything, right? To make our point across.
Yes.
That's what we try to do as Dominicans. We get louder than the
You.
other.
You're the Dominican.
That's what I try to do. I am the Dominican here. And one day we'll go on vacation there. So yeah, it is an interesting question and a little loaded, but
Yeah, and I thank you so much for all your answers here. There's a lot of different advice, and I'm sure if you're new parents or if you're in this right now, you might still be figuring out, well, what is the best for our family? You know, some people think it is good to argue in front of your kids, and some completely disagree. So wherever you are on the spectrum, you know, we trust that you are doing the best for your families. So maybe we should, let's lighten up the mood right now.
okay.
I think we should ask some date questions.
Date questions. Okay. Date questions. What have been some creative date ideas that you have done in your marriage? What are some great ideas that you might have? What are creative ways that you have done dates? And what I mean by this is whether it's after the kids go to bed or when the kids are around, what are some creative things you have done in order to have a date?
Yeah, especially during this time. We know, at least here in Toronto, we have a lot of restrictions, and our village or our family and friends that usually probably help us with our kids aren't around. So we'd love to hear some ideas that you guys have done where you've had a date, whether it was after the kids went to bed or even with the kids around. Give us your tips. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, we would, because our date nights are, we're just gonna turn the TV on and watch Netflix for an hour or 2 or 3, depending, just to kind of wind down. And that's kind of dedicated time for us where we kind of just stop and do nothing together. But what I'm seeing here is a pandemic date, playing cards. It's quiet and it brings the Santiagos back to their simpler times, right? I think that's nice with small kids. Any date that takes you out of the house is a nice date.
Now, is that with the kids or without the kids?
Without the kids. If you have small kids, anything that takes you out of the house is fine.
Okay,
right?
got it.
Virtual tour of museums I'm getting, especially now. That's kind of that's
a smart and fun one.
We have a couple that watches Marriage Monday. So thank you for watching on a weekly basis.
I love this one, a bedroom picnic.
Oh.
Snacks, play some cards, and watch a show.
Yeah. Some people like to just lay in bed with their iPads and play games like Candy Crush. I know we used to do that a long time ago, but...
When we had no kids.
But things kind of changed a little bit afterwards. But visiting the vineyards in the summer, that would be a very nice day. I would love to do that with you this summer. So I'm saying that out loud. I would love to do that with my wife this summer. So if anybody
did.
wants to watch our kids, by all means, I am open to it, right?
Oh, okay. I love the plug.
Yep. Just letting you know.
Okay, well, love the date ideas.
Yes, they're great.
Love the date ideas. So even more with dates, right? If we go a little, it kind of segues to this.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to know: do you show P.D.A. around your children? And what's P.D.A. again?
Public display of affection.
You mean it's not please don't ask? Okay.
It's not please don't ask, but it is the public display of affection around your children. Yes or no? Do you? And I think a good follow-up question for this would be, what do you find to be a value of P.D.A.? What would be the value of P.D.A. to your children, right? Yes, all the time. We're seeing always. Yes, we're getting lots of yes.
I love this. This is great.
We're even getting congratulations to the Portacios. They actually made the announcement last week or so that they're expecting their first child. So that's very exciting. So Kurt and Jess are currently watching. He says, I would. Keep it up, man. You're going to want to. I am telling you, for me, I love giving my kids kisses. But most importantly, I love giving her kisses and hugs, because I think it's a very important thing, right? I want my children to know that this is a very normal thing, and that we're not,
butting heads all the time, but that we're important to each other, and that we're showing each other that we love each other. And honestly, it brings our kids security. Every time Chris and I show P.D.A., sometimes it could just be a 5-second hug or cuddling on the couch. But, recently during the pandemic, we hug a lot. I'll hug in the kitchen or in the living room, even in the hallway. And as soon as our daughter catches us hugging, it's a party, guys. She comes and runs up. She wants to hug us. She calls her brother over. It's like, I don't even remember what she calls it, but it's a bonding time for the family at that point. And we're in a hug for about a minute or two, just laughing and being in each other's company.
Yeah, it is a great feeling. It warms my heart. It truly does. And I mean, the reality is I really do want to share this with my kids.
Right.
I mean, it's that simple. My marriage is very important to me. And so as long as the kids are able to see that through P.D.A., then I hope that they too will want to desire something like that for themselves growing up. And so it's just a great example. And I'm getting a lot of that on the chat as well. And so thank you all. Just family hugs are sweet moments is what we're getting. And the kids love hug time.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that warm embrace is always great. And so thank you so much for all of you sharing on that one. That one's a little bit easier. Right, but I want to go ahead and transition just a little bit different into, we love the whole public display of affection and things like that, but since we are a part of a faith community, right, we are a part of a faith community here, how do you find time? How do you find time to build your relationship with God individually or together? How do you find time to build your relationship with God individually or together?
I know for us, this one is a very important question to us because it's still something that we're working on. And as we add another kid into the mix, and as our schedules change, as our situation changes, and as our kids changes, it's always a battle for finding that time for us. I know when we find a rhythm of when we get to protect that time for ourselves, something changes.
Right.
A nap time is dropped or something, or we have another activity for the kids, and so more time is being squeezed out. And so for us, prioritizing our time with God, or even having times where you and I get to pray together, is so important. And I know, we figure it out, and then then we got to refigure it out because more changes occur. And honestly, that's just the stage of life that we're in.
Yeah, and so we're getting in the chat here that
Yeah.
you have to be very intentional or it won't happen, right?
Right.
And, just like anything in life, a lot of times some of us work really well with just having a schedule in place. Whether you're going to get your children set for, I don't know, a half hour, 45 minutes, if you put on something that they can learn so that you can kind of just step away, even if it's just a teardrop away, right? that you're able to just invest a little bit in your time with God, right? In your relationship with God. Pray together in bed before getting out of bed and before going to bed. I think
Yeah.
that's good because, wow, that's a challenge for me because we get up at different times of the
Yes.
day, right? Like one of us might want to sleep in, the other one might not want to. So very rarely do we get up together around the same time, but I think that that's great that I am going to write that down in my notes to possibly start practicing in our marriage, right?
Yeah,
Waking
love
up
it.
in prayer, putting God first when we wake up instead of our children.
I love this one. This is also just very practical and simple. It says, I don't get out of bed until I have my time with God. Very simple. I mean, it could be a little hard when your kids are coming into your bed, but I think, if we set that expectation, mommy's just going to be here for a bit, or papi's going to be here for a bit in bed, and the kids could maybe just sit, but not leaving until you've had your time. I love that. Love this idea from the Carpios. When the kids were younger, we used Bible audio and we were very intentional. Yes. Nowadays we have podcasts. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Bible audio, love it. Reading books together is great as well. And getting to church was also a challenge. You had to get things ready. Okay. Mandy, you're preaching to the choir here. Getting to church was also a challenge. You had to get things ready the night before. I definitely still need to work on that. I'm grateful for this time during the pandemic because getting ready for church requires me to get out of my bed.
Right, but you also see that Mandy also says that they sang a lot of worship songs to the kids, and so that must be the reason why they got all that musical talent going on in that family, right? Because of the worship songs that they were singing. And so thank you, Mandy, just for your response there. We're also getting in that I used to pray while nursing.
Yes.
Wow, Z, you can share about that, right?
Yes. Sometimes, especially those late nights, where you're even struggling to stay awake, those were some great times of prayer for me. I know those were some vulnerable times of prayer for me. So that one I appreciate so much because it not only keeps you awake, but gets you more connected to God and you find your strength in Him. So I love that one.
Yeah, and I know for me, whenever I would head into work or into an appointment, I would usually just turn the radio off and just pray. That is solid time, and pray that nothing happens in front of me, but I'm just constantly praying just for the day ahead, right? It's just getting some good focus time and having a great conversation with our dad, right? With God, and just being able to just bring it to Him.
And I love that we're seeing a lot about worship music. I want to thank KJ for leading one of our kids' favorite songs.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever we get into the car or even if we're at home, our daughter and our son, they love to hear I Believe.
I believe. Right?
And they remember Uncle KJ every time for that. So yes, I love worship music. I love that my kids love worship music and they're also learning from that. So love it, love it.
Great.
So I think we should just jump into our next question.
Let's go ahead. Let's do it.
So, young kids, I'm exhausted. He's exhausted. We work. We have to keep the house clean as much as possible. Sometimes that's hard. And the kids are running around nonstop, running up the wall, climbing couches, doing what? I have no idea. And we're constantly hearing that this stage shall pass. But we just don't want to rush through this.
Right.
We want to be present. So, any tips on prioritizing your marriage or our marriage when it feels like marriage should not be a priority? We'd love to hear from you. What are your tips to prioritize your marriage during this time as we raise young kids?
Yeah, I mean, we can focus on so many other things, right? Like, we can either jump to focusing on our kids, but then all of a sudden, let's say our kids are put to bed, well, then I'm focused on my finances now, or I'm focused on the bills that we have to pay, or I'm focused about the things that need to get done around the house, right?
Right.
And so it's sometimes very difficult to put your marriage as a priority because you just keep finding a to-do list.
All the time.
And so I need your help. We need your help on this, right? I need your tips with regards to your marriage and how to make it feel like it is a priority when sometimes it doesn't feel that way.
I guess not feel, but
Make it a priority.
Make it a priority,
Right.
yeah. We have some answers coming in from Manny. It says, our kids would sleep in the middle of choir practice at our condo. And music soothed them when they were crying.
And that may have been from
Okay, that's from a previous question. Sorry. Get babysitting.
Get babysitting.
Yes, that is a great one. Especially, when we're able to have that later on. I really do hope that we can really be a village at that point and babysit each other's kids. And early bedtime. Do you see that bedtime?
7 p.m. We have such a hard time just getting our kids into bed at 7 o'clock. But, I think it's a parenting thing. We'll work on that,
Well, when our kids were younger, they were good at 7. And now they're like, they talk to each other for a good half hour to an hour before they even fall asleep. So an 8 p.m. bedtime turns to a 9, turns to a 10, but they're getting to bed. So that's all that matters right now.
Yeah, but you know what? I can see the benefits to getting the kids off to bed early, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we spend a lot of our time staying up till about 1 or 2 p.m. This is me getting vulnerable, guys. So I'm just like filling you in our lives. Like, we spend a lot of time staying up that late because, well, the kids are going to bed a little bit later than what we want, or they go into their rooms, but it takes them a very long time to go to bed. And the reality is that afterwards, we get exhausted, or we find it very difficult to really engage each other and make our marriage a priority. But don't get me wrong, like sometimes it does lead us to a place where we just kind of just forget about everything else and just have a talk to focus on ourselves. And those talks, a lot of times, are right before we go to bed. We lie down, we think we're tired, and we catch second wind and just have another conversation
for another
about an
hour or two.
Right? Just to be able to reset our marriage.
And then it leads into sex.
That's right. Which, speaking of, I think is a great question to follow up with. How do you keep your sex life exciting, right? Like, I think this is the question all of us have been waiting for tonight, right?
Yes.
I have. Because I want to see what your answers are on this one, right? How do you keep your sex life exciting in marriage while you have children? Do you leave the door open as in tips? No, do you keep it closed? Like...
Well, as the answers are coming in, I'd like to just go back to the previous question, and some of the answers that we got were, it might help to think less of the marriage and more of your best friend, spouse, lover, life partner. I love that. I know for us, that was a big thing. He's my best friend. So if I'm thinking of him as my best friend, then I want to make it a priority. We also find time to just laugh. Yes, laughter is a great medicine, and my husband loves to laugh. I love this one. We say mommy and daddy time a lot to them, and it's non-negotiable. It's a great one.
Nice.
Love it. Okay, so the answers are coming in.
Lock the bedroom door. it seems that simple, right? Like
You
just,
would think it is.
but some of us like to have a little bit of adrenaline, right? And so you just leave the door open and hope that nobody runs in. I don't know. I'm not saying that's us. Sometimes it is. But be creative. Yep. Hints throughout the day, right?
Yes.
Like
Isn't there like how many touch communication?
6, 7, 8 times.
It's like a 6, 7, 8 times touch throughout the day signals that we're gonna have sex that night.
Scheduling it.
Yeah, sometimes that's what you have to do, right? Especially when you have kids. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to be creative. Someone said try different positions.
Hey.
That's exciting.
I mean, yeah, it is exciting, right? Talk about what you like, right?
Yes.
I think there's communication. There's a communication aspect behind all of this, which I think is also very beautiful. Being able to just openly talk about it with your spouse, just how it can excite you. Like, I mean, the reality is we've heard about role playing. We've heard of things like that, or setting the mood, right? Like,
Right.
Or in some cases doing the dishes, right?
Helping out around the house.
Helping out around the house, all those little golden tokens, those gold stars, gold stickers that you will
Putting
get.
money in the bank there?
Putting money in the bank. It's gonna come into a nice fruition, hopefully at the end of the night.
Hopefully, right?
Hopefully, right? Hopefully.
I love this idea. Send secret messages.
Secret messages.
Yeah. How would you do that?
I will. I have no idea how I would send secret messages. Like, this isn't like the type like I'm at the barbecue and I like get the flames going up in the air and
no
smoke. No.
I mean, honestly, we have, even if we're in the same house, a great way is to send a text message. Maybe show a little skin.
Show a little shoulder. A little bit of your shoulder, right?
Nothing that would get you in trouble if someone else looked at your phone or anything like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, guys. I think it's pretty much straight across the board from what we're seeing is that you schedule it, try to be creative, be open.
It says lock the door. I've seen many of that.
Lock the door, right? So that's great. Thank you guys so much for that.
And we're almost done, but we've already kind of touched upon this, and we do want to hear from all of you. But for the sake of our marriage, should the kids have a set bedtime? Now, you already know what we do, but let us know, should the kids have a set bedtime? And what is the value in that? And furthermore, should the kids sleep in our bed?
Should they sleep in our bed?
I mean, our kids don't sleep in our bed, but they do end up in our bed at maybe 4 or 5 in the morning. They're doing better. Our rule is you can't come into our room until the sun is up, but the sun is coming up a lot earlier.
It is. So when the birds are chirping at 4 a.m. is when our kids are chirping, sometimes making their way into our room, right?
Yes.
But we're seeing, building a routine, right? Having the children have their set bedtimes, and we've seen it throughout. Some of them, I'm envious of some of you that said 7 p.m., or going to bed earlier. I'm so envious of you. We'll get it right with number 3.
I hope so.
We'll get it right with number 3. But should the kids sleep in our bed was also part of it. The kids should have a set time, a bedtime.
Yeah.
You will be blessed by it. Yes, we also seeing here that the kids do end up in some of the beds.
We're not alone.
We're not alone. Thank God for that we're not alone. So we get to continue to learn from you.
I love what Albert said.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely, but with grace and exception. Yeah, I think sometimes we can be very rigid, but I love that grace and exception portion, because it's hard to even get them on a routine. But what I'm hearing is if we do get them on a routine, that we will be blessed by it, and our kids will be blessed by it too.
Right.
So we're hearing you. We're taking notes, mental notes right now.
Right, for sure. So thank you. Thank you all for your comments and your tips there. We're so grateful. And you know what? It kind of ties into the last question that I had, but like, you know, if mommy and daddy, right, are having a special time alone, like how do you keep from being disturbed or worse, being walked in? And we already heard, like, lock the door, right? But what else can be done? Is there anything else?
Lock their door? No, don't do that. Don't do that.
No.
Yeah, I think that was already answered earlier.
It was already
there.
answered, yeah. So we don't even really have to touch base on it in general. But thank you to our moderators for putting it up there in general. But I think the consensus is that we set them up on a good schedule, a good bedtime schedule. It sets up more
us time.
You know what? Suzette actually put something great earlier in the chat. She said, make sure that your bedroom is a love nest and not a playroom for your children. And so by being able to look at a comment like that, like, it's our space, right?
Yeah.
And the kids know that it is our space. And when we are in there, it's not just a place where they come in to play all the time, but they know to respect our space.
Yeah. Our kids bring their toys in all the time. So it's definitely something that we're going to take back.
Some people put laundry baskets in front of their door as an early warning sign, right? So, cool. What's next?
Well, I think we have one more question. So as we know, when you have your firstborn, many people take Lamaze classes, right, to learn how to breathe during labor. And as a part of our faith community, if you're going to get married, many people take premarital counseling to learn about how to be one. But few of us actually give much thought about how the next 20 years are going to look like when you're raising kids. So what we did tonight was actually golden, and I love this. I love that we get to learn from each other. I love that I'm learning from people that are in our stage, but also from people that have gone before us. So to wrap things up, we'd love for you to give us your best advice to help with the hard decisions that will affect our marriage as we raise our children. And again, that's to help us with the hard decisions. So if you can put that in the chat for us, we'd love to hear all those answers, those tips, advice. This one is golden.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what your advice might actually be on this. Because, again, Chris knows nothing, right? And through all the many years that we're going to continue to have children in our life, the reality is we're probably going to have, they're going to be in our lives for the rest of our lives, right? But more specifically in our homes for the next 18 to 20 years or so. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. What do we have going on in the chat here?
You have to know who has the last word.
Oh, okay. Who has the last word?
And prayer, lots of prayer. Also, like you said, connecting with people who have gone before you and learn from the wisdom they can impart and see what works for you. Yeah, I love that. Just figuring out what works for us. Getting advice from other people, but then figuring out what works for us, because what works for us may not work for another couple, or, right? So we have to figure out what's best for our marriage and for our family.
Don't mind us. We're looking at our phone because we're getting a little technical difficulties with the chat in front of us, and so
we're reading the chat here.
Yeah, don't stop learning, right? Always remain malleable, right? Kind of like wet cement. It's kind of what was the weightier the decision, the more time it needs, and pray a lot, right? Don't just make a quick decision, but slow down.
Right.
It's what we're getting. Lots of prayers. So we're getting don't rush into decisions.
Right.
Pray a lot. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. I know there's so many more answers coming in. Please look that over. I know we're going to look that over afterwards and take notes. These ones are important to us. You know, we have, with this youngest, we're going to have another 18 years or more. Our oldest is 5, but it's a journey, right? It's a long journey, but a blessed journey.
Correct. So if there's anything we saw from tonight is that we need to love our spouse more and differently than we do our children, right? And I'm reminded of the instructions of a flight attendant, right? The ones that they give right before a flight takes off, where they remind you to place an oxygen mask on yourself before you place one on the child.
Right.
And the reason behind that is, well, you're of little benefit to your child if you're not vibrant and full of life.
Right, yeah, I love that. And the same is true of your child and their relationship to your marriage. Your parenting will be more desirable and immensely more effective if you first and continually breathe vibrancy into your marriage relationship. And so we really want to thank you guys for engaging with us today. Thank you for imparting us with your wisdom and your advice and your experiences. It really does take a village. It really does take a village to help us in our marriages, especially in our marriages while we're raising young kids.
Yeah, for sure. And, don't forget to like and subscribe. And after this video ends, share it. Share it with others that you might have. Grandparents, if you have children that are raising young children, please share it with them.
Yeah.
If you have friends, share it.
Friends that are expecting.
Friends that are expecting.
Yes.
This is a great resource to be able to look at because, again, we're going to keep the live chat going.
Yes.
So it's going to remain there. And we're going to be able to actually refer back and see all of your advice that we received throughout the evening. Also, I just want to thank our production team for helping us, the moderators tonight, the Robins. Thank you so much for believing in us and asking us to do this.
Yes, it was a lot of fun.
We had such a great time. And you know what? At this moment, we bid you farewell, and we're going to send this back off to Kevin and Lisa Robbins.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to Chris and Zvica. Thank you for your vulnerability, for sharing your heart tonight, and really giving us a great experience with this episode. Thank you. We're really, really grateful to you.
We also want to say thanks to that very special cohort, all of you marrieds who are on the live stream there, who are putting great advice in the chat and putting your suggestions in the chat. We know that Chris and Z probably got a lot out of it, but also we all got a lot out of it as well.
That's right.
Wanted to let you know that our next episode is going to be Monday, June 14th. We want you to come back and check that out because this will be the third part of It Still Takes a Village, but we're going to be talking about staying in love when you've got older kids.
Teenagers.
And we've got Kevin and Nadine Joachim who are going to be helping us with that, guest hosting for that episode. So until then, we say thanks so much for being here with us. And remember, it still takes a village.
Bye.